Welcome to the Masters of Resilience podcast. This show is an exploration of the unseen and unheard stories of adversity that shape the journeys of high performers. These conversations will help you better understand the mindset, habits, and behaviors that empower these exceptional leaders to endure the most challenging moments of their careers and emerge stronger than ever. Your hosts are Ryan Seager and Mark Phillips. Let's dive in to more.
Welcome back to the Masters of Resilience podcast. Today's guest is Scott Stallings, a three-time PGA Tour winner with an inspiring transformational story in professional sports. Scott talks about his transformation as he rebuilt his body from the inside out and redefined what it means to live with purpose and resilience. Whether it's bouncing back from injury, battling through missed cuts, or choosing discipline in a world of comfort, Scott's story is a masterclass in the kind of strength that goes far beyond golf. He's a husband, a father, a man of faith, and someone who's shown that success extends far beyond the leaderboard. We know you'll enjoy this episode, so please share it with a friend, as that's how we grow. Let's get into it. Well, Scott, so as we get started here, give us one of the things that's been one of the harder things you've had to deal with recently as you've approached golf, as you've approached getting healthy. Give us a little inside scoop into your mindset of what some of the things you've had to deal with recently.
I was injured last March, played 14 years straight on the PGA Tour, and, one odd shot out of a fairway bunker. And next thing you know, you're out for over a year. And that's the first time I'd really ever been injured, in something where you're like having conversations with surgeons and how does this affect my career? Will I play again? Will I be able to do the thing? Like all the, rabbit hole stuff that you kind of follow down when you sort of face adversity head on. And like, obviously affected my ability to do my job, but it didn't necessarily it created so much more of an opportunity by taking, that away for a little bit and really started to understand like my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, opportunity to just sort of be around. And I had a buddy of mine that he just retired from Major League Baseball for a long time. And he'd kind of dealt with some injuries. And he said, man, don't be where you're going, be where you are. And so I just took that head on. Obviously my goal is to play and compete again with the best players in the world on tour, but I'm not necessarily like at my son's lacrosse event or anything with my daughter, like, man, I just really need to play on tour again. It's like, man, I love my job, but also like my family and all this stuff is what gave me the opportunity to do what I do for a living. And so, a great, added bonus of, somewhat of a sort of unforeseen event. There was definitely a lot of good that came out of something that, everyone's like, man, how are you doing? It's like, man, I'm actually doing pretty good. So it's at the end of the day, like there was a lot of, I realized how much the game meant to me. Like I love it. I still want to play and pursue it, but I think that there is a lot of other things too, you kind of compartmentalize a lot of part of your life when you do something like we do on the PGA Tour. And I've sort of done that in reverse, if that makes sense. My family is now in that, first part where, golf's sort of in the peripheral where have you guys seen that thing where like the juggler, they only look at the ball that's up in the air. They never look down. Yeah. And that's why they say like you have three things in your life that kind of, and what's up is kind of what you focus on. As soon as the juggler looks at his hands, the ball goes on the ground. And so that's all principles I've sort of taken with me through just dealing with injury and rehab and surgery and all that stuff. And it's been a really good lesson for me as far as some stuff I probably took for granted. And just truly try to be where I am. I think the first couple months I was home, I signed up for every event at my kids' school. Even like I was there for stuff like my kids weren't even involved in. I was just kind of showed up. And was like,
I love that.
What do y'all need help with? And the lady's like, I think we're good. I was like, okay, sorry.
On the reserve squad for the
That's but.
Great.
Scott, as you think about those doctor's appointments, man, you're getting you've had a career of health and vitality, and then you're kind of on the sideline. When you think about the inner voice and the inner critic, or what was kind of driving that fear in those moments, what was it for you that was making that so difficult?
Well, I probably didn't give myself enough time to like really grasp like what the next so many months look like. In my mind, I remember I saw this guy at Stedman Hawkins over in South Carolina. They have an office in Vail and an office in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And like world renowned, like guy was super nice. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to go see this guy. Like, I feel pretty good. He's going to look at something that we haven't seen before. And then next thing you know, like I'll play in like a month. I'm like driving over to this doctor's appointment. I was like, I don't think this is that big of a deal. And I had not really come to terms with like, man, this could actually be a lot more serious than I think it is in terms of my life. But like for my career and stuff, it was definitely a lot more impactful than I'd probably come to grips with. And like at the end of the day, I just wasn't ready to hear what he had to say. And I think I had not really given myself a time. You hear all those like, Navy SEALs guys like take a breath, look around. Like there was none of that. It was just like power forward, like what gets me back playing. And, I didn't really take any time to like, what does that look like? And so he scans my arm, looks at it again. And he said, man, you're about to be 40. Like, do you know like the full ramifications of like, once we get into your shoulder, like what is possible? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. He's like, if you have any arthritis, like in your socket, like we're going to recommend that you potentially replace your shoulder joint. And I'm like, I was just immediately out. Like, and to be honest, the guy that ended up doing my procedure told me the exact same thing. He's like, I'm not going to repair your whole shoulder joint into an arthritic area. Like no orthopedic on earth is going to do that for someone that relies upon my lead left shoulder for my living.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think that was part of it too. Like, I mean, Doc, if you ever listen to this, like for a guy that just was not ready to hear what you were saying, like I was as complimentary as I possibly could be. I was like, I'm not ready to hear this. And I think when you start looking back on it now, like the same thing, once I'd kind of come to terms with, hey, I'm going to have a surgery, this and that, I kind of thought once I had made my decision on the surgeon and all this, met with him a few different times, I went and saw him. He was based in Cincinnati, and I drove up. I'm like, man, we're going to do the surgery this afternoon. We're going to be back. And I walked in his office, and he's like, man, you got like 6-8 weeks or so before I'll do your procedure. And I was like, what's wrong with like right now? Yeah. And he said, your shoulder is like, it was literally like this. He said, your shoulder's 30 degrees internally rotated. He said, I can't anchor it. He said, I can't anchor anything to that. He said, I can, but you'll never play again. And so just like, so then having to just sort of manage, like, I mean, then I went on a full shoulder rehab program to have surgery. So you're in there each and every day, trying to rehab a shoulder so you can have a procedure to then have rehab again. So, and it was just part of the process of, atrophy and time and, just compensation. Everyone finds something that doesn't feel good, and you just figure out a way to try to make it feel better. And we have these pictures of part where it literally looked like my arm was like this because I just didn't want it to, there was no labrum at all.
Oh my gosh.
In there, and my bicep tendon was torn and all the other stuff. So needless to say, there, once I kind of took a step and could really take a view of everything that was laid out in front, all the doctors were kind of saying the same thing. It was just what I was willing to hear, or was I ready to hear? And I hadn't necessarily thought about what all that looked like. I sort of was ready for that guy to be like, all right, man, we'll give you this.
Just get it all fixed up.
Yeah. Let's just
easy answer.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we all know the easy answer is not the best. And, to kind of take a step back and really ask some questions and look at it, and, everything worked out absolutely the best. It was both procedures were great. But the timeline of, like I said at the beginning, like golf is totally opposite of my personality. And, any golfer, super type A, we're the one out there doing it. And then some moment you take that control out of it, is sort of like, man, I could actually go nuts with this.
Gosh.
So, and you're relying upon, and then you just realize, like, anybody that makes it in any type of, whether life, business, success, sports, and said they got there on their own, they're completely lying. Because like, I would not be anywhere near close where I am without, first of all, my family, my wife, my kids, super supportive through this whole time. But also, it was a nice dose of reality too. Like, therapy and rehab is what I'm doing. It's not who I am. A golfer is what I do, but not. And so I think all that kind of stuff was a really good learning point. Like, I hope to play and compete again, and play at the highest level. And that's definitely something I'm striving to. But also, like, but what makes me, want to go out there and do that is like who the people are at home that kind of help me give that. And same thing, the PTs and the doctors that sort of help me come back. Like, I mean, obviously I couldn't do that on my own at all. And so being able to learn from all that was a really good learning opportunity, especially you're never too old to learn. Yeah. And 40s better than never, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. So give us a little look in, Scott, into the mental side. Mark and I have golfed long enough so far from your level. However, we all know, like, I mean, I can't even fathom. I think you can empathize a little bit too when you've been in some of those spots and you're watching these guys on TV or live, and it's like, oh my gosh, how do you cope mentally with that? Let alone 13 years of kind of PGA Tour grinding and the mental toll that takes to, like, stay engaged, and then you have the setback on top of that. How do you get yourself mentally to a spot where you are where your feet are? And I personally struggle with that big time, is with 3 little kids and competing priorities. And you're like, gosh, I need to be all in on this, like, daddy-daughter date thing that I need to do right now, but I got other things blowing up. How do you grasp that? How do you get there?
Yeah. I mean, the juggler mentality is that, because, like, any person's like, man, I'm solely keen focused on that. It's like, like, I want to be the best, whatever. Well, that's a balance of, like, I want to be the best husband and father as I possibly can. Well, that's a balance of between your relationship with your wife and your relationship with your kids, and also your relationship with your kids and how your wife sees that. And same thing, like, I want to be the best player, golfer I can be. Well, like, I have to train, I have to sleep, I have to recover. Like, it's all just a sort of a balancing act, and, keeping your eyes up, looking at things that's here and now in front of you instead of looking at the ground or looking around. So I think that's sort of something that, when I do different things, like trying to create a little bit of margin where I have some flexibility in one way or the other, where it's not just so, if it's a relationship or a conversation or, a little bit extra time on a table or in the gym or something, like, I do have the ability to, give the time and attention that's needed, instead of, hey, I've checked y'all in for 45 minutes today, I'm out. And, it just, I think that, hopefully I don't live my life as stringent at that, where I can't, make time and availability for other people, and especially those that are near and dearest to my heart. And so it's something that I've worked very diligently, and something I have not been good at for most of my life, and something I'm definitely trying to do a lot better job of as, I kind of progress back into a little bit more of a normal playing and practicing routine. But to say I have it all figured out would be the biggest understatement ever, because I constantly fail and try to check myself and, see all the different things going into it. But also, like, I'm not doing my family any favors if I'm playing on tour thinking about, oh man, this is what I'm missing. This one, this, like, obviously that's like in your mind, but also, like, I'm not doing my family any favors in the reverse if I'm at an event that my kids are doing, thinking about what's happening on tour. Like, it's just sort of like that. I don't know, you want to look at a carousel, you want to look at it juggling, you want to look at whatever it is, but what's here and now in front is kind of what's important. And all that stuff in the peripheral is something just sort of a part of what you're doing.
You've said a couple times, Scott, how golf is kind of counter to your personality. That's really interesting. And to do it at such a high level and for that to be the case is really impressive. I think there's a lot of folks listening who maybe feel like the job they're in or the role they're in or, you know, the step in their career that they're within is, man, it doesn't feel like it's clicking for me. Right. And so what would you say to them? What's the motivation there? Like, how do you get yourself to achieve such a high level of performance, even though the requirements of that role, shall we say, are a little bit counter to who you are as a person?
Yeah, definitely very much like here and now, like that, like what's next. And, you know, golf's weird in the fact that it takes about 2.5 minutes to play a round of golf, but for us, it takes 6 hours. And, you know, really I have to pay attention for, you know, talk to the caddy, make a decision and go execute a shot. Like, I mean, y'all play, it takes about 2 seconds to hit a golf ball. But all the other stuff that goes into it. So like I have to have a little bit of an outlet. That's how the training component kind of came from that. But also finding like, I mean, I love the game. Like I love playing and competing and all this. So there is a love that kind of drives that, but it's just sort of part of it. And, you know, finding something that, you know, has, you know, whether it's a joy component or, you know, the best version of whatever that looks like, in terms of whether it's your work environment or relationships that kind of come along with it. But, you know, it's definitely like you sort of step into the day as far as, you know, playing and preparing on the road. And you're like, all right, I got to kind of lock into this. Because if I just let myself, it's like, this is the version of me that would just walk out there I'm going to get worse. So, you know, being really task oriented, you know, making a plan like that, that resonates very well with me. Instead of like hey, I'm just going to go work on this. It's like, that normally just ends up real bad. It's like, I'll end up in a conversation with some random person or a phone call, or I'll listen to some podcast and I'll get like into it and I'll be like, I'd hit a ball in 30 minutes or just different things like that. But, you know, I think a lot of times people, when they, you know, find themselves in sort of, you know, not the most ideal circumstances, you know, start to look at, you know, I don't know why they got themselves in or how they need to get themselves out, instead of like, man, a lot of that comes from like what's in there instead of like the external factors. And like, man, once you can kind of find what like satisfies like the needs and wants of like the heart, like all that stuff can kind of work its way out to kind of create a pathway to sort of what is sustainable, instead of what's just sort of like that, like flesh part of where, hey man, that felt good for like now, instead of like what's truly like lasting and different things like that. Like, you know, I know my career and playing is something I'm super proud of, but like those 2 kids and the marriage of my wife and different things like that, those are so much, like, I think my wife is definitely annoyed to the point of like, I told her, I was like, I will truly do anything to spend time with you. And I played my first couples tennis match. My wife's a tennis player and I'm not.
That's awesome.
But it's like, I truly like, I will do anything. And I think that's something that, you know, to the point she's like, I get it. Like, you love me. Like, I'm going to need it. I'm going to need like a little bit of time away. So
I need some space, please.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Which is very, I could totally respect that, but it's like, hey, I'm here. Like, so, but it's also understanding that, you know, it'll be very interesting to see kind of how, you know, hopefully I could take the things I've learned from a year away from the game and be able to carry over, work my schedule a little bit different and kind of, you know, help that out. And as I transition back into a little bit of a different schedule as far as playing.
So Scott, talk to us a little bit too about, I know you've kind of made a shift somewhat recently, but like on the kind of the health, the wellness and how that's supported being, obviously you're there's obviously a high level of athletic ability that's required in golf, but how has that helped?
Not as much as you would think. But I will say, and I got my tour car in 2010. Like the athlete that was in there, not even myself. Like if you'd have told me in 2000, I went and played with a buddy of mine, and it was a course I grew up at. And there's a picture of me when I first got on tour, and I was definitely looked a lot different than I do now. And he said, "Man, what if you told that guy in that picture that you were going to run the Boston Marathon?" I was like, he would have probably said a lot of unkind things or just laughed and just walked away. But, to know that guy, I think I was 25 in that picture, to know that 15 years later I was, I did it. And, that was something that was super cool to be a part of it. But I think like anything, I was a young guy on tour, and, it wasn't necessarily like, it wasn't like drinking and partying and anything. It was just like no plan. It was just, hey, make birdies, drive it till the wheels fall off, and no sleep recovery, nothing. It was like, man, you go travel 300 days a year, a bunch of years in a row with no plan. Jeez. Like you're just you're a ticking time bomb. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. And, thankfully I had a lot of people come around me, and kind of help show me what that looked like. And like everything, you see that guy. I mean, anybody that's a high achiever that's going to make a drastic change is going to go so far over the deep end. Like, and then you got to kind of find what's like actionable, like what's really, what does a real normal day look like that's, not so far extreme. And because I definitely dove way too far. I went from like almost 260 to like in the high 170s. Wow. Weight wise. I mean, The number of people that were like, "Hey man, are you going to make it?" Like, it was just like, I see pictures of back there, and it was just like, dude, like that was definitely too far. But it was like anything, you make a change and you kind of feel like, see what that feels like. And you're like, I'm just going to keep doing this more and more and more. And then next thing you know, you kind of worked yourself back into the same thing that you were. You're just on the complete opposite side of it. So kind of find that happy balance. You hear all the 80-20, all this and that. It's like, I don't really necessarily think about that. I just sort of kind of manage myself as like, if moving my body, if, making, the decisions that I make day in, day out, sort of like the good outweigh the bad. And there's some kind of plan as far as what I'm doing training wise, like that sort of build enough accountability to like the decisions that sort of go into there as far as diet, sleep, all this. You could definitely start to have that where one affects the other. And if you could have enough of a plan, you kind of know what that looks like, and it kind of creates the accountability. And for someone that has the kind of the personality I do, that has helped tremendously.
Got to touch on the Boston Marathon. What was that experience like? And are you going to do another marathon?
I don't think it would be, I don't think I could do it safely while, like, I mean, I think the thing that a lot of people were asking about, like, what number of PGA Tour players could run a marathon? And I said, way more than you think. You go take a singular sport athlete and look them in the eye and tell them they can't do something, they will do it. They might not do it fast. They might not do it fast, but they will get it done. Like, there is no doubt. And I just think the time to like safely train and do all that stuff, like I'd never really run much ever in my life, but I was telling Ryan before we started, a guy gave me Steve Magnus's book, Do Hard Things. And it talks about, he had sort of a weird freak injury, and he started looking into toughness and resilience and all the different things. And I had a chance to do a podcast with him probably a month or so ago. And man, it was awesome. But essentially I found out I had to have my elbow done in November. And I was like, crap, man, like I gotta find something to sort of start scratch that itch a little bit. And I wanted something that I sucked at. I wanted something that I knew nothing about, that I kind of had to take the time it would take to practice and play, professional golf, and sort of take that where. And so it just sort of resonated with me. I was born up in New England, about 45 minutes down the road from Boston. I was going to be 40 years old. And I was like, man, I'm I'm going to try to figure out a way to do this. So had a cool charity we were able to run with, Golf Fights Cancer, based up there in TPC Boston, and help him raise some money, and got to celebrate a 40th birthday with, about 35,000 my closest friends.
Nice. That's so good, Scott.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. You've talked, even a couple minutes ago, you just kind of talked about how you're focused on what's happening in your heart and in your head, and not just, kind of freewheeling it, I guess. We've begun to refer to that as kind of the inner game, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that's happening out on the course and on the track or whatever you want to refer to, but what's happening internally is so important. And I'm curious if there's been any habits or I don't know, practices that you really adopted to gain control when it pertains to that inner game.
I think prioritizing the things that you're directly dealing with in a day and day, but like the number of times that you could call it a check-in, you could call it whatever. It's like the number of times my wife and I have a conversation of like, hey, like, what do we need to be on the same page about? Mm-hmm. And, the communication aspect, is something that I have not always been the best at, and something that I sort of like flew by the seat of my pants. But like, man, a little bit of planning and a little bit of just general awareness, as far as, man, it can make your life a heck of a lot easier instead of just like fly into the day with reckless abandon. And that just leads to just a lot of frustration, especially for the people that, you have to, live and interact with day in, day out. So,
yeah.
I mean, that is something that I'm, to be honest, probably to a fault about. To the point of like, man, like even when I was leaving the house to like come talk to you guys, like, hey, we still like good for the afternoon, and it was like, yeah, we're like, okay, like I'm just trying to be adaptable and go in there, to the point where like she's like, get out of here, like,
that's good.
So,
we're set. Yeah, we're set.
Yeah, but just stuff like that, and especially any like husband or spouse that travels a lot, especially now that my kids are getting older, like you truly realize like how much they sort of, man the ship and kind of deal with all the craziness of operating a family, and how much of like, man, not that you're waking up every single day trying to make up for lost time, because like, man, that's unsustainable too. But truly, like, man, this is where I'm at. This is where like I'm not trying to be anywhere different, and kind of continue to go in there. And man, we've definitely had some really sweet times with our family, and something that not that I mean, we got a ways to go before I'm playing on tour again. I played yesterday. We got some things to work out.
We got some things to tweak.
That's
how
you're swinging a club, though.
Yeah, that's right. That's how Ryan and I feel every day, Scott, for what it's worth. So
welcome to the average person's,
Yeah, that's right. What about on the course though, Scott? I mean, there's so much pressure winning tour events. I mean, that's like, I can't even fathom it. What are the things that you were able to do from a discipline perspective to control that inner game in those moments?
It's the balance between reacting and responding. And, we respond back, and golf's weird because it's the only sport that you don't face the target. Like you think about everything else, like you don't actually look at the target, you look sideways at the target. So, when my chest is forward, I can see everything, I can think about how I feel. All the variables that come into way. And then as soon as I turn that 90 degrees, whatever that is, as far as in your routine, that's sort of like when the reaction comes. The reaction is a direct relation to the environment that you create in the response time. Wow. And so that's sort of how we kind of look at it. And so that's when you hear the guys like, I didn't hear that phone go off, right? It's like, that's real. As far as like when people step in, like back behind the ball, you hear all kinds of stuff, but that's where you're communicating. That's where you're expressive. That's where you're, hey, I don't like this, or I really like that. And, you kind of take in all the sights and sounds to kind of help create the narrative of how you're going to go do. That's where you answer all the questions, the who, what, why, how, and then the reaction is the doing. And so that's maybe something that y'all can take in. As soon as you start thinking about how over the ball, it's over. it is over.
Yeah.
So literally I was talking with Ryan right before you came on. I played with one of my really close friends yesterday that he played 13 years in the major leagues. And he was like, I could hit 98 inside on my hands, but this ball is not moving and it is freaking me out.
Isn't that wild?
He's like, but something, the same thing. It's like, man, 98 on the inside, you're just reacting to what is presented in front of you. Like, you're not creating the response part. You're sort of, hey, this guy's winging it at me. And so I got to, sort of react to wherever I think that the thing's going to happen. But then they step out and they kind of take in some coaching, a little bit of that. And that's sort of that response. It looks a little bit different in multiple sports, but the same thing happens. You see that guy that's getting ready to go sprint and he stands back over and he's kind of visualizing what it is. And as soon as he locks down in the blocks, it's over. He's just waiting on the gun to react off of that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, every sport looks totally different, but they have the reaction versus response. And, when I read Steve's book, he has a whole section on all the different ways that the sports kind of have that part in there, whether they realize it or not. But, I mean, that is... As far as the reason that I haven't been able to play for a long time, like, I have some physical skill, but like nothing related to some of these young guys, but it's being able to just manage sort of that back and forth. The mental component of all that has had much more, has lengthened my career much more than my physical ability.
So interesting.
Well said. It's interesting. I feel like with golf, especially, I think there's obviously a lot of parallels, but it's like, okay, if I think the emotional waves that come at you and like, again, you're playing, like, you look at the big goal that you want to accomplish and the hurdles and the twists and the turns that the journey take to get there versus just like, whether it's standing over the ball or whatever it is for people, like making sure that like the fundamental things you're doing, like just the little things, micro actions or whatever, like I'm just taking care of those little things. How much the little things stack up to like getting to the real milestone pieces. It's just I feel like for you, that's golf is a great picture of that.
Yeah, very much so. And like, like you want to relate it to something totally different, but like it's hard to shoot a gun straight if you don't know where it's aimed. And, the same thing, like if I don't know where my club face is, like nothing else matters. And, so I'm not really a method guy as far as whatever, but the center of the club face doesn't move and I need to know where that thing is. And then I'm going to react to sort of that. The same thing in life too. Like people try to make all these, drastic changes and different things like that. And then it just becomes like they've created like their own hysteria and they're the cause of it. It's like, man, any person, I mean, I did the same thing. It's like, I'm going to sleep, I'm going to eat, I'm going to train, I'm going to do this. And it's like, man, we're a day in and I'm wrecked. Instead of like trying to build that one habit and sort of cascade on top of that, where one starts leading to the next. And so that's sort of where I had kind of adapted a little bit of sort of, I would say where I am now, where like, all right, I know I'm going to train, I'm going to run, but like, all right, I got to be kind of cognizant of like how much sleep I'm getting or, what's going on with my family or what's this and that. Cause next thing you know, if this is getting too much, then you got to kind of give and take from other areas of your life. And that's okay. But just kind of being adaptable and aware of sort of what that looks like in its best version and sort of how to scale it in its worst, instead of like, you just have no margin and super stringent where you're sort of miserable to be around, not only for yourself, but everyone that comes in contact with you, and just having a little bit of adjustability. And the same thing within the game of golf. Like I tend to play like a little kind of left to right faller. But man, some days that thing just wants to come out there and draw. And I just got to, I got to dance with the girl I came with. So
that's so good.
I feel so seen.
Yes.
Exactly.
Dance with the
Mark,
girl.
do you feel better now that, since Scott's saying that, now that we feel better stuff?
I actually do. I really do. I mean, I haven't, I got a lot of work to do, but Scott, it's amazing. I think it's so fun to hear how you talk about it, man. And Yeah, it really cracks me up.
So on the I'm looking. I was watching the Travelers last weekend, and it's like you watch JT, just get a quad bogey on a par 5, and it's like, okay, in situations like that too, like, okay, I've just dropped 4 shots in one hole. Like that's a lot to then like step away to a new. Okay, it's a new hole. Like how do you like? I don't know. In my finite brain, it's hard for me to like comprehend how you just like gather yourself and then step into the next thing and just try to go back to the simple things.
Yeah, but I mean, like in the same, like, is the first shot of the tournament or the last shot of the tournament most important? The answer is they're all important. They have the equal because they all add up the same. And I think as it's totally different to a guy that plays golf like once a week or once a month. Like this is the only shots this guy's going to get to do it. But when you hit as many as sort of we do, it's like that guy that struck out 10 times in a row, like he gets a heater on the inside. Like, man, it's probably going over left field. Like it's just kind of what you do. And you sort of get, I don't know, you get a little, I mean, you're used to the environment, you're used to the ramifications. But if you ask JT, like, hey, well, how did you make a quad? Is like, man, I made this swing and it kind of led me to try to make up for it. And it wasn't like he just hit, 8 or 9 bad shots. He either made a bad decision or didn't execute like he wanted to, and it sort of led to a mess. But in the same, like you see guys in the situation trying to come down the stretch to win a tournament. He's thinking about winning the tournament. So if he makes a mistake, like he could make a huge mistake, but if he pulls it off, it has opportunity to still sustain an opportunity to win. Especially guys, some of those upper echelon, if they get around the lead, they're willing to take more risk in certain situations, because you see that with Rory a lot too. Yeah. Like, Rory either has a chance to win a tournament or kind of finish in the middle of the road. But if he gets in the situation of like, hey, this is sort of that make or break it moment, like he's willing to take it on because winning is that much more than, a top 10. Yeah. Where a bunch of guys are in that situation are not necessarily to take on that risk. It's like, hey man, 8th place in an elevated event is a lot of money, a lot of points, a lot of this and that. And next thing you know, guys in that situation, like it is like, man, like winning is what I think about. And so you see a lot of guys talk about that.
That's interesting. Scott, do you feel like
that's probably how he dealt with that a little bit better than
I'll ask you, and then maybe
would.
More broadly for like the whole tour. Do you hate losing more than you love winning?
Probably, but I think I played 14 years on tour and I've won 3 times. So was I only successful 3 times?
Right. No,
I think, I think that's all perspective and sort of how you look at it too. Like I'm very proud of the length of time that I've had my card that whole time and sort of look at it. But I think the understanding of just sort of where you're at in your career and different thing. But there are a few guys out there that legitimately, like if they're not around the lead, like, I mean, it's sort of
turn off.
Yeah. It's like, man, I'm here to win and compete. And if I'm not able to do that or around that, it's time to like pull the chute and try again another day. So, but I think the competing part is something though, that like, I told you I played my first couples tennis match the other day, and like I got super, like I'm not a overly competitive person, but it was like the first time I sort of got in that environment, and when I have no idea what I'm doing. And my wife's like, what is going on here? I was like, I don't know. Maybe I just haven't like tapped into this in a while, but like, I kind of like it.
I kind of like it. That's so cool.
And so, but yeah.
I appreciate that perspective. I think it would be such a disservice to suggest that, you didn't win after 14 years of a successful career and with only, with 3 titles. It's just, so I think for me, what it comes down to is I feel the same way. I really don't like losing, but I think to win is to execute your process. Mm-hmm. And we can't control outcomes, right? Yeah. We live in a volatile world and you compete against people who are doing it different. And sometimes that's going to go their way. Sometimes it's not. So I feel like I hear a lot of that in how you're approaching your life and your career is like the process is what counts. Yeah. And if I execute the process the way I desire day in and day out, I'm winning.
Yeah, golf is a weird thing. It's like sort of like life. You can do everything wrong, get a great result, and you can do everything right and get a bad result. Like I can hit the perfect shot,
Yes.
literally 10 out of 10, nail the flag, go in the lake.
Yeah.
You're like, what just happened?
That
And the same thing, like I can like thin heel one up there, 2 bounces short and roll up there and go in. It was like, which shot was better? Well, I know which shot was better, but which score was better? And sort of, you know, you know, there's a lot of parallels to what I do for a living to, sort of life. And it's like, man, why does this constantly keep happening to me? Why is this break? I'm looking for the next big thing, or I did everything right. I ran the business, I ran this, and sort of had a run of bad luck. And there's a lot of parallels that kind of go back and forth between the two.
Yeah. I mean, I think like Tommy Fleetwood's comments from this weekend, right? Like on that topic, it's like, okay, the guy's, I don't know what, top 10 in the FedEx Cup right now, like finished his second or whatever, third, whatever he finished. And okay, like to call that not successful when you're executing for 4 days, and sure, the outcome, I think his mindset in response to that was like embodies the whole resilience topic, where it's like, look, I would be doing myself a disservice if I'm just beating myself up about the fact that I didn't make that putt to push and win and whatever. Yeah. But like that, I just think I want people to hear that, because I think it's important to make sure, like, just because it's not winning, like I think the progress is, Mark, to your point, is important to keep that in perspective.
Yeah, I think too he does a good job of not necessarily falling into the U.S. narrative of like, oh, he's the best guy to never win, or he's the most accomplished player to never win on tour, which in inevitability probably right. He's the highest ranked player FedEx wise and world ranking wise that's never won on the PGA Tour. Yeah. But if you look at his career, like he's won plenty of times in tournaments like that, and obviously world class and just an awesome dude. Yeah. So to see him just kind of push back as far as like, man, I'm going to continue to put myself in that situation. Like you're not going to sit here and tell me what I am. I'm going to tell you what I am. And so I think that's a guy that's truly got his head on his shoulders. And honestly, with his accent too, like I feel like he can just kind of be mean to the media and just sound like an awesome gentleman. Yeah. Or if I kind of said some of the things, kind of not necessarily talking back to the media, but like, golly, an English accent would just, I would say so many more just sort of not controversial, right, but a little bit more harsher tone, because it sounds like I'm being so nice while I'm saying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
I think that's the perspective that I think people need to have too, is it's you need it for sure. Mm-hmm. So Scott, as we kind of think about wrapping here in a minute, so give us a little bit too, like I know Mark had alluded to it a little bit, but like the habits, the things that like you feel like, whether it's like reading or key things you do with your wife or kids, like what are the kind of things that you feel like really help you be dialed in, whether it be like on the course, off the course, with family? Like what are some of the tangible things that you feel like have helped you?
Movement for sure. And that looks different. Like we could have some like grindy, gritty workout. We could have an afternoon walk. I would say if my wife was on here, she probably says her favorite thing is we'll go walk our dog like after dinner and kind of have like a reset of the day. And I, as much as I probably said it, through the availability with the people that are closest to you, and because you start to create that distance and your chance to continually interact and kind of be a part of that, and we all kind of have times in their life, whether it's our parents or other relationships, and it's like, man, I just wasn't as available as I should have been. And, that happens. And I think that's something just creating ways to where you have an awareness of what that looks like. Cause I can definitely tell sometimes throughout life, it's like, man, I just haven't really been whether it's my kids or other family or friends or different things like that, it's like, man, I just got to have a lot better opportunity to sort of check in and kind of seeing what I'm doing. But the movement side is something that's key. Like my caddy would tell you the first time, and like, man, I can tell like if he hadn't trained before we come and we're gonna have like a long practice day, because he's sort of kind of miserable.
Yeah.
And that's different. Like that could be like and that's just sort of where you sort of get it out of your system. Your body starts the process of whatever that looks like. And that could be a run, that could be a walk, that could be some gritty, sweaty workout. It's just sort of something where I'm gonna move around, feel better, and then kind of go with my day. And that's been a huge part. I'm trying to be a better reader. I sort of ebb and flow with that. I'm not as good as I should. I did a lot of like audio stuff when I was doing the marathon stuff, which was great. I just like to sit and be still. I would rather be like doing something and like, so the audio helped a lot. But something that I could definitely improve upon a lot, but something I do enjoy. But just finding, I always think about when I would sit down and read all the other stuff I could be doing, and I think that I've always kind of struggled with that.
Yeah. So last thought, if you could rewind the clock, over 13 years ago before you're starting your PGA Tour journey, and give yourself guidance, what would that be?
Ask more questions. I never really feel like I walked through my career and felt like I had it all figured out. I felt like I sort of went through my day on my heels, like just sort of waiting for someone to kind of pull me along and like let me know like this was okay. Instead of now, like further in my career, I have a lot more experience, a lot more time to kind of know like what to prepare and different things to do, and sort of continue to kind of push that envelope, but still be able to be aware enough to ask questions and find out. I helped one of our kids. I helped the UT guys here in Knoxville, and one of our kids qualified for the US Open, and I went up with him to Oakmont for a day, and he was just more like, man, how do I get to the point where I can prepare like this? It's like, man, I've done this as long as you've been alive. Like you don't just wake up and know how to do this stuff or know the questions to ask and how to like work your way through preparation and travel and all the different things. So continually putting yourself, it took me a while to kind of get started in my career, but then it happened really fast. So I kind of didn't really take enough time to kind of continue to ask the questions that sort of gave me the opportunity to create a little bit of that fast start. And then sort of life happened. And now you look back, it's like, man, I probably should have asked a few more things, maybe manage that or be a little bit more prepared for the situation and different things. But that's probably something that I would look. And then from the physicality side, just, man, like what took you so long to sort of like just have a general awareness of what health looked like? I mean, because like you don't know how good you can feel or like what your body's truly capable of. And so you put it in the environment to really see where it's at its best. And, there's all the quotes of you don't know how bad you feel till you know what good feels like. And all the different things like that. You're like, dude, and then you start continually chasing that. And that's sort of where I sort of resonated with, like, I know what that feels like, and just continually trying to recreate that environment to what that looks like for sure.
Yeah. That's well said. Really good. So how do people keep track of your journey as you're recovering and hopefully getting back on tour? Where can we get tips?
I guess some social media. I'm not as good as I should be. I tell a lot of my sponsors, like, man, you can clearly tell, like, I'm like I make my living playing golf or different things like that. So, I mean, I try to do my best. Thankfully, a lot of sponsors are very patient with my lack of knowledge. I learned last week what user generated content was. I got like all these acronyms sent to me in an email, and I was like I have no idea what this is. So we've got some good people that sort of help me out through that. And, but we do a bunch of stuff in Tennessee. I got a bunch of cool junior golf stuff with our Kids Play Free program, and the Tennessee Junior Cup, run a couple other events, and we got a huge partnership with Youth on Course that just partnered up in May. So trying to do everything we possibly can and kind of be where we're at here. And all the other stuff I do with the Tennessee Golf Foundation, we just took over in management of the Knoxville Open, which is at Holston Hills here in Knoxville. So it's on the Korn Ferry Tour. So excited to kind of see what that looks like. Have a little bit more of a role in not necessarily the day-to-day management of the event, but just the kind of what the tournament look and feels like. Holston's near and dear to my heart. That's where I play here in town. And I grew up in Oak Ridge just down the road. And so between there and Holston's kind of been my two homes, throughout most of my junior and college and professional career. So, awesome. A lot of fun things happening outside of just playing golf on the PGA Tour. So need to get you guys to Knoxville and
let's do that
a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Show us a thing or two. For sure.
Yeah. Show you, hey, all the thoughts are behind, not over.
Yeah.
So just remember that.
We got to remember that.
Mark and I are going to make
dance with the girl you came with.
game.
I think is also what I heard. So
yes. Hey, if she's drawing, man, you're a drawer.
That's it, man. It's day to day.
And also the most thing every amateurs you really are bad at, they predetermine the outcome of their round based off of how they hit balls on the range. Like that, the range is fake. Like
so fake.
The range, just because all you do on the range is get loose, and people don't realize like how much rhythm is involved in like that rake a ball hit. And just so any person that has any kind of athletic ability, like a bunch of the guys that I'll help with, like I'll make them like step back and like take a minute or two, because inevitably like you can sort of time it up. And then you go hit your first drive, and the next shot hits 12 minutes later, and you're like, well, that felt totally different. It was like,
that was not the same swing. Yeah. Right.
We know that. So, we know that feeling.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Yeah. So the range is fake. Go to the gym, move your body, feel better, and go the first tee and whack it.
Boom.
Wow. All right. Roger that. That's going to be, Ryan's grinning because he knows I love the range. Absolutely love the range. So it's good.
Hit balls after. Yeah. Dude,
boy, challenge accepted. We got to try something to break out of it.
Mix it up.
That's good. Well, Scott, thanks so much for your time, brother. This was such a privilege, and thanks for sharing your thoughts with our audience.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. Thank you guys for having me.
Look forward to keeping tabs on you.
Thanks for engaging with this episode of the Masters of Resilience podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend or colleague. Stay up to date on all the latest episodes and get exclusive resources at mastersofresilience.com. We'll see you next time.